And Prof, of course, you have spoken on Channel about our elections here in South Africa. I'm just wondering for your initial take on this poll in the USA. Is it turning out to be as intense and close as perhaps you thought?
Well, it's been a wild day or wild 2 days of several emotional swings. If you were a Biden supporter, you would have gone to bed last night very frightened and anxious. You would have woken up this morning and looked at the election returns and been in a very foul mood. But gradually you would have seen some glimmers of hope. And throughout the day, originally they talked about, because of the postal votes, that there was going to be a red mirage, which was mean an original lead by the Republicans, or regarded as red. But then a blue wave as the postal votes came in. It hasn't been a wave, but it's been like a slowly rising tide that as the day has worn on today, that the Trump margins have been gradually reduced. And Biden now has passed Trump in a few key states, so that if you took the number of states that have been awarded to Biden or called by the networks, plus the states he's currently leading in, he now has 271 electoral votes, which is, of course, enough, barely, but enough to make him 46th president of the United States.
So I know that you crunch the numbers and you love looking at the numbers. First of all, do we have a clear idea of voter turnout at this point? Because we know that the numbers have been incredibly high, even before the election.
It's going to be around 68%, which is an all-time high in the well, not all time, but at least in the 21st century, and going all the way back to the start of the 20th century, voter turnout has never been that high in the United States. That's as a percentage of all eligible voters.
All right, so 68% of the electorate likely to have voted. How many millions does that translate to, roughly?
Well, we had 120 million vote in 2016, so we're looking at 160 at least, maybe 170 million.
All right. So it really is, it's, as you say, it's unprecedented. Let's just talk about the issue of calling the election. President Donald Trump called it. Everyone said that was far too premature. People are being really, really cautious about calling this one. But we do know that frequently politicians, media houses do call the election. At what point is it safe to call an election? And at what point would it be safe to call this one?
Well, basically, they'll in each state they'll look at the margin, the victory, whoever is ahead, and by how many votes, both in proportion and absolute number of votes, and then they'll look at how many votes are outstanding, and to see is there any reasonable path by which the candidate could win all the outstanding votes or a majority of those, and emerge victorious. So basically, once they conclude that there's simply not enough votes left in order to change the outcome, they'll make a call. So right now you have three crucial states in the American Midwest right now in question. Biden has moved ahead in Wisconsin by 20 to 30,000 votes, but they're almost done counting. There may be a recount, but it looks like he's going to win that by about the same amount that Donald Trump did in 2016, right around 20,000 votes, which is really less than 1%. It's a really thin margin. Biden has now moved ahead in Michigan, but there's still about 200,000 to 300,000 votes outstanding, which are postal votes, largely around the urban areas around Detroit. And we know those are going to break overwhelmingly for Biden. So, again, they haven't called Michigan because they can't be certain of that, but it's a pretty good probability that he's going to win Michigan. And again, he'll along with flipping the state of Arizona, lines him up to win 271 votes. But Pennsylvania is still outstanding, and he's about 500,000 votes down. Biden is about 500,000 votes down to the president right now, but about 1.5 million votes are outstanding. And again, almost all of those are postal, and we know that Biden's been winning about 75% of postal votes in Pennsylvania. So there is a shot that if he wins 75% of those outstanding votes, it could be a very narrow race in Pennsylvania. And I think the Biden campaign, again, doesn't want to go into office with a one-vote victory in the Electoral College. It would like to have a bit more of margin to claim a bit more of legitimacy. But otherwise, it's one of those things right now. I think if you're on the Biden side, you're extremely happy given where you thought you were this morning. But given where what you expected 2 days ago, most Democrats should be very, very dissatisfied because they were expecting a very decisive victory, and they were expecting to take control of the United States Senate. That's probably not going to happen. So with this rising turnout, the president has done a very good job getting his votes out, especially in rural areas across the country.
How soon do you think it will be possible to call it, and are you in a position to cautiously call it at this point?
Well, again, guardedly, I would say that it's hard to imagine any of those states being reassigned or taken away from him. Again, the networks are saying 225, I think 225. I would say he's at 271 right now, but again, I'm basing that on 2 or 3 states, which is a very thin margin, and I'm assuming that the rest of the votes coming in will favor Biden, but clearly it's not a foregone conclusion yet.
Indeed, and thank you so much for breaking it down so wonderfully well for us, cautiously calling it for Biden at this point. That was Professor Robert Matters, political analyst from the University of Strathclyde in Scotland.